Hi, this is Ice Tries Part 1. If you're new to ice dyeing and don't know where to start, this video is for you. This video will cover two colors, strong navy and shiitake, and the technique we'll be using is under dye. I'll show some basic techniques to get you going. We'll start with preparation, go into setup, then folding, then dye application, washout, and final results. This is step number 1, where we squeeze out our soda ash soap till about just damp. Here you want to avoid wringing the shirt because the shirts that you're going to be dyeing snap if you put too much pressure on them. The shirts we're using here are Hanes 100% cotton, size medium. This whole dye is going to be based on a medium-sized shirt. If you're using a large or extra large, you're gonna have to consider having a larger dyeing space. You'll see why later. These are the supplies that you'll need for this dye. Your powder, your teaspoon, your gloves, aluminum foil, the cheapest that you can find, your ice. You're going to need 2 different sizes, a larger one, which I get from ice trays, and then a smaller size ice cube, which I get from store-bought 5-pound bags. So for your bin setup, it really depends on how many shirts you want to do at the same time. I have a setup here which is made up of 2 baskets. I also have a 10-gallon Rubberneck Rubbermaid bin. It's 21.5 by 15.5 by about 9 inches high. It fits these baskets perfectly. You can squeeze 2 baskets in and they're propped up enough that it lets the dye runoff sit at the bottom of the bin and not touch your shirts, which is very important. You can use different sizes. You just want to make sure that it's lifted off the bottom of the bin enough that your shirt won't touch the bottom where all of your dye runoff is sitting. I'm fitting 2 medium-sized shirts in one basket and 1 long sleeve in one basket. Your first layer is your aluminum forms, making up sort of a hill and valley terrain that you'll lay your shirt over. I'm crumbling up about 5 foil balls for my larger t-shirt and 3 for my smaller ones. Try to loosely form these aluminum balls because if you squeeze them too tight and make a small form, we won't be able to get enough of a interesting terrain to lay your shirt over. So now we're ready to lay our shirts over our aluminum. So you have your shirt inside out and you want to make sure that you lay it face down. This is to make sure that any powder you get directly on the shirt that doesn't fully melt will be on the inside of your shirt. Randomly place your aluminum foil and make kind of a lumpy terrain that your dye is going to flow over, creating those blooms that you see in the final result. So really just arrange everything in kind of a balanced way or however you feel like you want your dye to flow. In the case of a long sleeve dye, there's something else to consider, and that's the sleeves. So you'll see here I'm arranging the sleeves around the hills and kind of in the valleys so that they're not covering where we're gonna get large blooms in our shirt. You can also lay them over the whole thing. It's really up to you. Try and be creative here. Then we'll lay our 2 short sleeve tees down. We'll do the same thing where we're creating a mountainous terrain with our aluminum forms. Here we're only using 3 forms because it's a smaller t-shirt. On the top we have a regular tee and on the bottom we'll have a pocket tee. Remember, it needs to be face down. You'll arrange the sleeves here too, but they're much smaller. Once you have everything tucked away to where you want it to be, we're ready to lay the dye down. We'll be using strong navy here. We'll need about 3/4 of a tablespoon for each short sleeve shirt. So I'm gonna try 2 different techniques here. The first one will be on the pocket tee, and we're just gonna sprinkle it on the top of the hills. On our other short sleeve tee, we're gonna also use about 3/4 of a teaspoon and only sprinkle it in our valleys. This will make for a pretty different shirt. Applying your powder dye on the hills versus the valleys will result in 2 different style shirts. The plain tee with dye in the valleys gives you much more of a dramatic kind of space effect. The pocket tee with powder on top of the hills gives you a lighter, even blooming effect. Long sleeve will apply the dye in both the valleys and over the peaks. My approach here is to make a couple heavy pockets of dye so that the blue will bloom heavier in certain spaces. Our next step and our 4th layer is going to be our large ice cubes. I place about 12 ice cubes on the long sleeve. Some of them are placed over the dye pockets and some of them are placed in valleys of the shirt. We just want to make sure that we have them evenly spaced so that they cover the whole shirt. Then I do the same for the smaller shirts. I put about 6 to 7 cubes on each one. The ice cubes are a part of the randomness of this style, where wherever you place them will dictate the blooms that you're gonna get. That's kind of the best part of ice dyeing, is the surprise. So next, you're gonna layer your smaller ice cubes. Here I have 2 bags of store-bought that I'm just gonna dump over the whole thing and make sure that I have full ice coverage. There's no areas where I can see fabric. Next step is our last layer, which is our shiitake powdered dye. We're gonna apply it the same way that we did the blue, in kind of heavy spots, but giving more of an overall coverage. We're gonna make sure that there's at least a light sprinkling of dye over the whole layer of ice. If you wanna go heavier in some pockets, this is a great time to experiment. So here we're gonna use about 3/4 of a teaspoon of dye for each shirt. If you're working with larger shirts, then you're probably gonna wanna up that dye and go a little bit heavier. All right, so we're all done and it's time to wait. We're gonna wait about 20 hours to let the dye set. So if you're anything like me, you're gonna be opening your bin every 2 hours to see how it looks. Here's what everything looks like fully melted. This is my favorite part about ice dyeing. This is when all of your hard work and thought about what colors you want to use pays off, and you're able to see what the dye has done on its own. So here when you're rinsing, you want to make sure to use room temperature water, not hot, during your first rinse, and the color is mostly gone from these shirts. Once you're done with this step, you're going to set up a hot water bath with a little bit of soap. I use Dawn. This is gonna completely rinse any excess dyes that you have on the shirt for 10 minutes. Once this step is done, you can squeeze out your shirts and lay them down and see what you got. So here we got a nice even covering of dark blue and brown blooms. Throw all of the shirts that I've done in the wash with a dye setting detergent. You can find this on Dharma. This detergent is just gonna absolutely set these colors. Once they're done washing, I throw them in the dryer on a very light tumble dry, and this is what we come out with. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and it's helpful in all of your future tie-dye experiments. Please subscribe. I'll be releasing more ice dyeing videos and tie-dyeing videos. Thanks again, and if you like anything that you saw here, visit my Etsy shop at etsy.com/rugs and tie-dye.